And so I just threw on two instances of effects, which goes to show you, don't be afraid to use effects on top of effects. If you want that pro amateur sound, not amateur, pro amateur, wow. If you want that professional sound, if you want, to do it how the pros do it, don't be afraid to put effects on top of effects. Okay. What I mean by that is, just because you use a delay and a reverb doesn't mean that you can't use another reverb. You just have to have an intention behind it. So let me explain my intention. So I threw on the deverb, and we have a room preset. And so what I did, this is my room track, my room aux basically. And what this is emulating is, it's just putting my vocal, making my vocal sound like I'm in a roomy space, hence room reverb. So all it's doing is making me sound like I'm in some sort of ambience. Okay, so we got a very fast decay time of 354 milliseconds, which is about the size of a medium-sized room, although it says small. But it's about the size of a medium-sized room if you're looking for reflections and echoes and reverb in a small room. So the only thing I don't like about using stock or plugins that are quite inexpensive or come with your DAW is that they can tend to sound digital. And what I mean by that is it doesn't sound like it has any depth to it, and that's portrayed that's kind of like exaggerated when you don't add any low passing or any high cut. If you don't cut those highs, you'll really get that sound. So when I added this room sound, it just sounded so boring, flat, and just so I took a high cut and at about 6,000 hertz, because I wanted to eliminate any sibilance in the reverb, and I also wanted to just kind of make this sound more like an expensive plugin, in so many words. Alternatively, what you can do is also add, if your reverb doesn't come with EQ settings, which I don't know why it wouldn't, I would just take a EQ, maybe sometimes even an addition, and just cut out a lot of that low end and cut out a lot of that high end to where it just sounds to where it sounds right, basically. So I always turn my reverb all the way up, except for, and when I get the sound that I want, I just turn it down until I can barely hear that reverb. And so with this room, I wanted this to basically spread the vocals out, make them sound wider than they actually are, instead of just sounding, condensed and in the middle. And so right after I do that, I'm like, okay, I need to add, now I'm trying to give this a sense of space, like in a sense that I want this to sound like a record. Okay. And so the way that I wanted to do that was to, and I also wanted to accent the room reverb. So every effect that I'm doing is in addition, and it's playing off of the previous effect. And so we got the room. Now I want to add a plate reverb. And so I go to the deverb, come to the plate setting, do a large plate. I basically keep it on the settings that it came with. However, now I'm using this reverb as an effect. So we're taking out way more of this high frequencies, of those high frequencies. So we got we're cutting down to 3.15 kilohertz. And I did a little bit more at 11,000 hertz. So you also have this low pass. It's basically the same thing. I don't know why they add the high frequency cut and low pass filter. It's the same thing. So, and that's all because that plate reverb is very metallic, and it just, when you have that high end on this stock reverb, I love the deverb. It sounds amazing, but now that I've stepped into that realm of like reverb emulations, I noticed that this just sounds too digital to me. And so I just got to cut that out. This pre-delay we set, that's just basically the time it takes for that reverb to kick in. So we set it at about 22 milliseconds. It kind of gives us more of a whooshing effect. Basically, forgive me for the terms that I'm using. I can only explain how I'm hearing it. And so you hear the vocal, and then all of a sudden it kind of delays, kind of makes it sound delayed, or give it a delayed effect. So I did just enough of that. In addition, speaking of delay and going into why you shouldn't be afraid to use effects, naturally I would just throw on a reverb track or a reverb send it to some delay, rather send it to some delay, and just be done with it. However, I didn't want that delay to be noticeable, especially because of how much space this this beat allows us to be. So I really had to be careful, because you can really hear all of the effects that's going on, and I want you to be able to feel it in this instance. And so I threw on a delay right in the reverb track, and I know heads are going like, what you can't add reverb on top of delay. Hey man, you can do whatever you want. So my idea behind this is to delay the reverb. I know that sounds weird, but my goal is to, when you hear the delay, you're not hearing the delay as what the vocal is saying. You're hearing the delay as it's going through the reverb. So the reverb is going into the delay, and the delay is delaying the reverb. So you got this plethora, you got this like, menage of effects happening. So you got a room reverb, which gives you one space, and then you got the plate reverb that gives you another space, and then you got the delay that's delaying the reverb. It just sends it to this really ethereal space. And I kind of got inspired with a lot of these techniques from two engineers. That's Chris Lord-Alge, and who's produced a lot of rock songs. And believe me, I go to rock to listen to, a lot of mixes. And the idea is, I get a lot of ideas listening to how they mix rock. And the other basically producer that I listen to is Ilangelo, who it happens to be The Weeknd's producer. So if you listen to The Weeknd vocals, it's just like this ethereal sound that just captures you. And the reason that is because he's using effects on top of effects on top of effects. So I did as much as I could with the delay, or with the stock plugins. And I didn't have to do much. I like the sound that I got. And so that's pretty much cool. I like that the way that it is.